Hello, my name is Gary Biltcliffe and I'm going to talk to you about the mysterious Isle of Portland. Walking and rediscovering our own local landscape has helped us through the difficult times we are experiencing. We began to appreciate the importance of going out on an adventure, no matter how big or small, because it invokes the inner spirit and helps us connect to our higher consciousness. One of our local landscapes is the Isle of Portland, opposite Weymouth in the county of Dorset, England. Although it is only 5 miles in length and about 1.5 miles wide, it is full of interesting places to visit and explore, both natural and historical. The isle has an ancient history of settlement dating back 8,500 years, with the discovery of a Mesolithic village near the Bill at the southern part of the island. The highest parts of Portland once had a great number of megalithic monuments and earthworks that have unfortunately been destroyed through quarrying. The island is famous for its layers of pure white limestone, used in the rebuilding of central London after the Great Fire, but its history and mystery have many layers too, some of which I'll reveal in this short presentation. Portland juts out into the English Channel, attached to the mainland by a narrow bank of pebbles 9 miles long called Chesil Beach. Like many other peninsulas around Europe, it has a connection to the ancient sea peoples, and from its great number of Neolithic and Bronze Age burials, it must have been regarded as an Isle of the Dead. It is also possible that the situation of the island was ideal as an observatory to calculate the precise settings and risings of the sun and moon into and out of the sea, unobstructed by land. In the book The Overland Way by Hazel Eardley Wilmot, the author rediscovers an overland trading route dating back to the Bronze Age between Portland and Porlock on the coast of Somerset. Porlock is one of the oldest ports in Britain, with trade coming from western Scotland and Ireland. This land route was a safer way of transporting valuable goods, avoiding the difficult and treacherous sail around the Horn of Cornwall. Today the Ferrybridge Inn stands empty and neglected, but in the 19th century, before a bridge was built, it was a hive of activity, with people waiting to cross on the chain ferries seen here on the slide. The Portlanders were culturally different from the mainland people of Dorset. They had their own laws and customs and were proud of their ancestry. For over 1,000 years, Portland was a royal manor, awarded with special privileges and rights, giving them greater freedom unhindered by English Parliament. One of the customs, called Gavelkind, allowed equal inheritance to sons and daughters, that allowed Portland women freedom unheard of in the rest of the British Isles. In the Dorchester Museum, I discovered a number of unpublished and handwritten accounts of the history and mystery of Portland by Clara King-Worry. Clara King-Worry lived on Portland in the 19th and early 20th century, and was passionate about Portland's folklore and its mysterious stones and earthworks. In her books The High Place and Old Portland Traditions, she recorded many stone circles, dolmens, barrows, tumuli, and single megaliths that stood on the highest parts of Portland between the Heights Hotel and the Grove, where the Portland prison stands today. The red dots on the map show the great number of megalithic stone monuments referred to by King-Worry in her books. There could be as many as 7 stone circles between the Heights Hotel and Easton. A group of circles such as this is rare in southern Britain. There were also recorded megaliths in the south of the island. A giant megalith called the Longstone, and a stone row like those seen on Dartmoor once stood between Southwell and the Bill. In this print from 1790 by Grimm, 2 very large stones and a fallen one stand by the road between the Heights Hotel and Easton. These stones tower over the mail coach seen to the right, and must be over 3 metres tall. The stones were mentioned by Elizabeth Pearce and Clara King-Worry, and may have been called the Frolic. Many of the ancient stones were not lost on Portland, as the quarrymen of old were superstitious of them. They re-erected the stones in the walls nearest to the original site, and here in Easton Lane, right where they were supposed to have stood before quarrying, we see the weather-worn megaliths. More megaliths can be seen at the back of the Heights Hotel, just off Eastern Lane. The great gnarled hole stones in the wall at the grove opposite the prison gates were said to have been part of a circle of stones that stood in the prison governor's garden, but later used as a rockery. For some reason the governor became fearful of the old stones and had them removed to the wall. Many of the old stones around the country appear to have some protective spirit, and their destruction has often led to a storm or release of psychic energy that has been detrimental to the person responsible. One of the wonders of Portland is Rufus Castle, said to have been built in the reign of William II, or Rufus, as he was nicknamed. However, the castle is architecturally unique and unlike other Norman castles of that period. It is a pentagonal castle which originally had dry stone walls built without mortar, a tremendous feat and testimony to the skills of the ancient Portland stonemasons. Although the exterior walls of the castle have now been pointed with mortar, the interior of the castle still shows the original dry stone masonry. During the 90s, I realised that Portland was an unusual and unique place when I discovered that the earliest church on the island, St Andrew's Church at Churchop Cove, was aligned with its 18th century replacement, St George's Church, to the summer solstice sunrise. I also noted that the distance between them, 0.84 miles, is repeated between other churches. This 0.84 distance can be seen between St Andrew's Church at Churchop Cove and St Andrew's Church at Southwell, and also the Roman Catholic Church at Grove, dedicated to Our Lady in St Andrew. If we move the point to St George's Church, the same distance can be seen between there and the Brackenbury Church at Fortuneswell, and St Peter's Church in the Grove. I also discovered a straight line of churches, 4 of them in total, that create a kind of meridian. Further study revealed 2 circles with a diameter of 1.68 miles, centred on St Andrew's Church at Churchop Cove and St George's Church. 1.68 is a number linked to the golden ratio. There are 2 other churches that did not seem to fit with the sacred geometry until I visited the old Masonic Hall. The Isle of Portland has 6 Masonic lodges, which for a small island is unusual. In the old Masonic Hall, now a private dwelling, the original Masonic fireplace depicts the Seal of Solomon with an internal triangle linked with the Royal Arch degree. This gave me an idea to overlay the symbol over the church geometry. The overlay now includes an inner circle, bringing in the 2 churches at Easton, All Saints and Easton Methodist. If we take away the Royal Arch symbol, then we are left with a vesica, with an inner circle creating an eye. Bearing in mind the large number of Masonic lodges on Portland, then this could be a representation of the all-seeing eye. One of the 2 churches mentioned on the inner circle is All Saints Church, which has another of the wonders of Portland, a painted ceiling depicting the 12 signs of the zodiac, something quite rare and unusual in a church. The other church on the inner circle is Easton Methodist, which houses yet another of the wonders of Portland, a carved altarpiece depicting Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper, which many authors refer to as a symbol of the divine feminine. This seems a fitting symbol here in Portland, having unique customs that gave island women greater freedom and respect. King Warris says that there was little cultural interference from mainland people up until the 20th century, and therefore the legacy of this sacred geometry probably came from the native islanders themselves. The Verne prison was once an Iron Age hill fort, defended by slingers, who were adept at the slinging of the rounded pebble beach stones with a leather strap. Huge caches of these stones were found during the construction of the Verne prison. The Portlanders say their skills came from their Balearic ancestors, who were so famous that King Alexander utilised them in many of his wars. King Warri often mentions that the old Portlanders viewed life differently to those on the mainland, and were more spiritual and cultured, mainly because, she says, the kings in ancient times settled the island with people of noble blood, from distant lands to trade with Europeans and therefore remain politically separate from the rest of Britain, a practice seen on other peninsulas around Europe. Here we see a comparison between Portland on the left and the Isle of Tyre on the right. Some authors in the past have linked Portland to Tyre, the great Phoenician city, having two harbours like Portland. Also, it is said that the Portlanders remember the siege of Alexandria. A 19th century antiquarian who visited the island recorded that the inhabitants, who say that they are Phoenicians, have never until lately allowed any English, or foreigners as they term us, to hold land in their territory, but have kept themselves a distinct people. According to King Hoare, the first group to settle the island were the Combans, descendants of the Phoenicians, who still recall the name of the Mediterranean colony from whence they came. The Phoenicians always settled on islands off the coast to keep the trade going between foreign countries unobstructed by the politics of the mainland. Here we see the Phoenician island of Tharos in Sardinia. Known Phoenician sea routes run from Carthage in North Africa and Gadeir in Spain, and can be extended northwards to places known to have a connection with this great seafaring race, including the Isle of Wight and Southern Ireland. This cutting came from a newspaper on the Isle of Wight concerning Phoenician antiquities found on the island. The Phoenicians were known to trade with the people of the Isle of Wight at Pucaster Cove and Brading. In the little museum on Portland there are unusual iron ingots that were also found during excavations of the Verne. They date to 500 BC, a period known to be at the height of Phoenician influence amongst the British Isles, believed to be the currency of the Latin culture. Another of the wonders of Portland are the Beehive chambers, found during the 19th-20th century quarrying of the interior of the island. Some were lying next to each other, some on top of each other, and some were linked by a corridor. They are dry stone beehive corbel chambers, like the Greek tholos tombs that were built on the land surface. Although they are believed to be Iron Age grain storage chambers, earlier pottery and ritual objects appear to date the chambers from an earlier period. The little museum on Portland also houses one of over 100 stone coffins of this size found around the island, believed to be Roman. Although historians believe that the Romans quarried the island, the Portland traditions say they never settled the isle, and so these coffins belong to another race of people. They are also different from the genuine Roman coffins found on the mainland. They are, however, identical to coffins found in Etruria or ancient Tuscany and Lazio in Italy, which are known to date from before the Romans and belong to wealthy seafaring traders. I believe those who are sensitive to the land can communicate directly or indirectly with the genius loci or the nature consciousness of the local landscape. Nigel Pennick once said that traditional teachings informs us that the earth is not a dead body, but is infused by a spirit, that is its life and soul. It is a world where the material is a reflection of the spirit, and where the spirit reveals itself in the material. And after all the discoveries I had made, I happened to see a figure jump out of an aerial photograph of the island formed by roads and footpaths. This giant figure mirrors the islander's belief in the great slingers of the Verne Hill fort, which he holds in his right hand. The sacred geometry of the island also fits with the giant, and reminded me of the Greek legend of the god Kronos, who was said to have been imprisoned and chained onto one of the islands in the far northwest. Or perhaps he is the British god Bran, whose name appears in a number of places around the island. These are just some of the many mysteries and wonders of the Isle of Portland included in my earlier book, The Spirit of Portland. For many of you there is always an adventure to be found in your local landscape, and I am pleased to share with you some of mine.